You know, life shows up in such amazing and wonderful ways at times. Just as it says, as I said when I read the daily word, it can be something that we really, really love, that we really, really hearken to. I'm going to reveal to you something that was a bit of a surprise to me last night at 11 o'clock as I'm finishing up some of the finishing touches on my talk for this morning. And the email for what my talk title was going to be came across the top of the banner on my computer. And it said that my talk title was Awake and Aware. I thought, well, that's quite fascinating. I thought I was going to be talking about your indwelling, inspiring key. This was actually what I had sent to Johanna, and actually I got Johanna's permission to throw her under the bus this morning, just to let you know. So I thought, wow, what an amazing opportunity. This is actually my mission statement. That's on the base of all of my emails. And I'd like to share that mission statement with you right now. And I also recognized it gives me an opportunity to truly lean into and live into my mission statement. My mission statement is awake and aware of God's ongoing mystery. I rejoice and celebrate in all of life's wonder. Through prayer, gratitude, and invitations to transformation. So, you see, I got a chance to lean into what appeared to be a mistake, but instead, see, what's the opportunity here? What is this indwelling, inspiring key that I can unlock my life, my heart, this world, my place in it? Is that something that you wonder about at any time, at any space, at any point during the day? Do you wonder, what is my mission? What am I here to do? Is it to unlock the wonders and the mysteries of life? Are you here to be love? Are you here to be mystery? Are you here to be comfort, peace, ease? Are you here to upset the apple cart and turn things over and allow it to rebuild itself? Because you see, all of that is necessary in this cycle and in this way that life presents itself. There's not one particular expression that's greater than another. And that's one of the things that we talk about, teach about in unity, is that God is wholeness. God is allness. It isn't just simply a matter of rainbows, unicorns, and daffodils, just one of my favorite phrases. Because you see, what we do sometimes is we put God in this box that fits about how, it's all about what I want. I want love, so that's what I'm going to make God be. Put it in the rainbows, unicorns, and daffodils box. This ongoing mystery is something that is revealed to all of us through our lives. One of the ways that unity and new thought and this whole attitude of wholeness was introduced to me was through the form of Emmett Fox, an amazing teacher who wrote something called the Golden Key. Now, he wrote this in 1931. I was not around in 1931, but I was exposed to it, and even though this was written 91 years ago, it is still something that we call a new thought primer. It's a new thought principle. Well, if it's 91 years old, how new is it? That's the interesting thing about new thought, is that it has been around for long before Jesus embodied this whole idea of transforming life. New thought is founded and grounded in a spirituality that is time independent. It's omnitemporal. You see, you have the power to create your life. You have the ability to bring your life into newness and into wonder. So this scientific key, this idea of the golden key that was written by Emmett Fox 91 years ago, states that the scientific prayer will enable you to get yourself or anyone else out of any difficulty. It is the golden key to harmony and happiness. Now, that might be something worthy of focusing on, harmony and happiness. It may very well be something that we would truly like to experience in our lives. One of the things that's beautiful about visiting Unity Church of Hawaii and the talent of Zamar is that I get to hear all these amazing harmonies right up close and personal. And I would imagine that you also recognize the harmony that's taking place in your own life, if we're willing to do that. One of the beautiful things about living in Hawaii, and for that matter, living in Waikiki, is that there are sirens often. And when I first moved to Hawaii, it was something that I resisted because I didn't really want to hear that. I would imagine that most of us through the course of the day might not want to hear a siren. But I wonder if you'd consider the possibility that that's a sound of harmony. There's an entire group of people who've gotten into a vehicle to go and assist someone who's in trouble. Now, even though it's a loud, sometimes cacophonic and disturbing noise, it's actually an expression of harmony in our lives and in our world. I'm going to invite you to consider that this harmony that you hear when you hear a siren is something that is asking for your thought process, your prayer attitude toward lifting up everyone involved in this experience of a siren. It can give us a whole new way of life. It's a new thought that brings us into harmony. It also recognizes the point of health. How can we each be a greater experience of health in our lives? A lot of that has to do with wholeness, with bringing our lives into an experience of the whole. So if you'd like to engage in this scientific prayer, which is actually just a new thought, it's the next thought that you're having, I'm going to invite you to use this golden key that was introduced by this amazing man named Emmett Fox. Emmett also goes on to say that the rule is to think about God. And if you're thinking about your difficulty, you are not thinking about God. How many of us have gone through the course of every day trying to figure out what we're going to do next about fill in the blank? And as mature, rational individuals, that's of course what we want to do. We want to think about what we're going to do next. We're going to plan everything out, and then as we plan that out, we'll know what we need to do in any given situation. What's fascinating about that is that it's actually an ego trick. It's something that offers us in our lives the chance to trip us up and no longer see the mystery or the amazement that's present in every situation. This mystery and amazement of our lives is when we think about God instead of the problem. Instead of the solution as you would like it to be, the question may very well be, what is this teaching me about me? What is whatever circumstance in my life opening up about me? One of the things that's been exciting about my experience here this morning is that, of course, I brought a mask. Because for the last 2.5 years, that's what we've all been doing. We've all been wearing masks. And I can pretty much guess that almost all of us are pretty tired of that. We'd really like to get an amen. Finally, I get an amen. It is a wonderful thing that we can take the masks down at this point. But I think it's all that much more important that we remember that no matter whether we're wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, the health that we hold within us is the source that resides in you and in me and in all people. Let's hold a consciousness and an attitude of health for one another and health for ourselves, and know that in that we are thinking about the source. We are thinking about God and not thinking about what we're afraid of. As we focus on fear, what comes into our lives is fearful thoughts and fearful things. What we can lean into and open ourselves up for is recognizing that the health that resides within me, the health that resides in you, is what we're moving into. In these last 2.5 years, many of us have had to face reassessments about the manner in which we go about our lives. Some of them have been incredibly painful and difficult, filled with grief and loss. Some of them have been unexpected. I have had an opportunity over the course of the last 2.5 years in order to understand meditation in a way that I never had before. When you spend a lot of time by yourself, I tend to meditate more. So that's been an incredible blessing for me. This thinking about God is how we think about the opportunity and the possibility that's already present. Rather than focusing on the problem and what we want to get rid of, which is generally the human way of working through things, we think about what's the possibility. What is being revealed to me in my life? As I am awake and aware of God's ongoing mystery, I can truly see today that there is a blessing in every circumstance, an opportunity for excitement and delight and joy and wonder in every moment. Emmett Fox was the author of The Golden Key. He was the minister for divine science in New York City in the 1930s. There were numerous people all over the world who were affected by his teachings, and he was also a friend of Charles Fillmore. Charles Fillmore is the co-founder of the Unity movement, and Charles Fillmore liked to refer to the truth that is back of anything we see. Now, this is a quote that comes from Reverend Paul John Roach, who is a Unity minister and a Unity author, who's recently written a brand new book called Unity and World Religions. Unity as a movement is foundationally Christian, but we also recognize the truths that are present in all the world's religions. I think it's important that we truly lean into the mystery of what can Buddhism offer me in my life? How can the truths of Hinduism, which have blessed centuries of people, be a truth that can offer a way of living for me in my life? Paul John Roach has written this amazing book that I can highly recommend. That's the reason why I'm bringing it up. I invite you and encourage you to join with me on Saturday mornings on a book study where we're actually reading the book and having discussions around it. It's a pretty amazing experience. And it actually looks at the depth of how the world's religions have come together in order to bring forth the truth of unity. So this idea of unity is what we are all in. But we also recognize that in our material life, in what we see, touch, taste, feel, hear, there seems like there's a whole lot of separation. As a matter of fact, there's all sorts of news channels that you can look at that point to the idea of separation. I wouldn't recommend those. I would recommend that we actually see where we can come together in our lives. That may very well be an idea worth looking at. Because you see, this back of that is spoken of in this quote from Paul John Roach is where we all reside. We all come from one true source. We all spring forth in a myriad of expressions and colors and delight from one true source that in unity we like to call God. So if this scientific prayer is about thinking about God instead of your problems, what exactly is this God that we're thinking about? When I was growing up, I was told that God was a big, powerful, hairy man in the sky who was going to doink me if I messed up. Some of you might have been taught that as well. What I recognize today is that God is the flow and the movement and the energy of life itself. But God is the source from all of which that flow and energy comes forth, springs forth. There is a divine idea behind every problem that we might confront or live with today. This divine idea is the foundation that we can look at whenever we are curious about what can we deal with next? What is ours to do in our lives? I don't need to tell you that there's an immense amount of news and differences that are taking place in our world that can be disturbing and upsetting. There's a problem of violence that's taking place in our nation today. And many of us are faced with the curiosity of what is mine to do. Many of us are wondering at a state of powerlessness or what seems like powerlessness of this is not for me to do, this is for someone else to take care of. I beg to differ with you there. Because you see, I believe and I understand that each of us hold a consciousness and a prayer thought that can make a difference in regard to peace, in regard to safety for all of us. I'm going to ask you to consider what is the divine idea in back of what we're facing in our nation today. Charles Fillmore speaks to this when he says that all things rest on ideas. The idea back of the flower is beauty. The idea back of music is harmony. The idea back of day is light. What's the idea back of you and peace? What's the idea for you? What is in back of whatever you might be called to do in this? Because I can assure you it isn't powerlessness. You have a significant place and play in our world today. It isn't as magnificent as coming in and making everybody behave. That's what I love. That's one of the challenges that I deal with as well today, is that, there are so many people who come in and feel like if I just get power over this, then I can wrest satisfaction from what is taking place in my world. But what's important for us to do is to come together. The divine idea in back of what we're dealing with is not fear, it's finding love in our world, finding a sense of purpose in our world. And in the same way that the idea in back of a flower is beauty, the idea in back of whatever may be amiss or whatever seems amiss is indeed a place of purpose, a space and an attitude of peace and love. My question for myself today, my question for you is, what part can you play in that? The way we can determine that is not by coming into some sort of knee-jerk reaction, but instead centering into a place and a space of meditation. When we open a space of openness, when we allow a space where God can come in and our preconceived notions are released, we can actually come into a place of understanding what is mine to do. There's a lot of things that are taking place in our world that is upending and reforming in the way that we go about life. I believe that every single one of us plays a part in how that will take place. Because you see, there's an amazing lady who once shared a bit of wisdom. Her name is Paula D'Arcy. She went through a difficult time of upheaval when her son was killed in a car accident, and she felt an immense amount of grief. Her relationship of many years split up. And then she realized that although there were all of these difficult problems that she dealt with, God comes to us disguised as our life. What is your life telling you today? What is your life revealing to you today? And in that space of openness and in that space of quiet, what is next for you to do? Can we, as expressions of God, can we, as children of God, truly be heirs to the kingdom that we're meant to make? Can we truly allow ourselves to see that God is revealed in our lives? It doesn't come from sitting and reading a book, although that can be helpful. It doesn't come from sitting and praying for hours on end, although that too can be helpful. It doesn't come simply and solely from a time of meditation. That, indeed, can truly be helpful. It's a combination of all of these things, along with truly looking at, examining what's taking place in my life. Unity as a thought system, as a primitive form of Christianity based in the core teachings of Jesus, come down to recognizing that I dwell in God and God dwells in me. I'd like to ask you for just a moment to consider these words. If you'd like to state them out loud, I would ask you to do so. Or if you'd like to speak them in quiet and speak them to the inner sanctum and the inner core of your heart, you're invited to do so. I'll ask you that we say this out loud together. I dwell in God. God dwells in me. You see, the truth is there is no separation. And there is no circumstance that is coming from out there. Yes, of course, there are others who are motivated and moved by a variety of things, but our response comes from within us. And that God energy, that creative energy that resides in you, is waiting to be expressed. It's waiting to be revealed. It's waiting to be unlocked with a golden key. To no longer think about whatever problem may be showing up in the world, and instead recognize the divine idea in back of it. and instead to think about God all the time. Emmett Fox, in his writing about the golden key, stated, whatever it is, just stop thinking about it and think of God instead. That is all you have to do. Now, I love this sentence because for me, what I respond to is like, oh yeah, right. It's that simple. It truly is. Because if we truly sink ourselves into our lives rather than pushing it away and trying to separate ourselves from it, we can come into a place of knowing what God is revealing for us, how God is opening up in our lives. It's important that we lean into this ongoing mystery of life. It's important that we know that God is not something that fits in a box, sitting there waiting for us to call on it, him, her, them. God is indeed active and moving in your life right now. Charles Fillmore once wrote that the personal is limited. The universal or God consciousness is unlimited. What this means and what's important for me to recognize is that I don't have my own personal God, but there is a wholeness that I am to lean into and open up to be in the presence of today. That's not only what you are revealing about me, it's what I'm revealing about me. In whatever way we're faced with a difficulty or a challenge in our lives, let's lean into the mystery that's taking place. Many of you are aware that June is a celebration known as Pride Month. Lesbian, gay, bi, transgender people are celebrated throughout the month of June. And in my lifetime, growing up as a little boy in Mississippi, I was oftentimes told that those people were bad and that they were wrong and would never inherit the kingdom of God. What I knew with me as a little boy who was very clear from a very young age that he was attracted to men rather than being attracted to women, I knew that what they were telling me was not true. What I'd like to lean into today is how can we, as individual expressions of God, embrace all of the wonder and amazement and myriad of expressions on this planet and see how they are indeed beautiful. They are meant to inherit the kingdom of God as well. The message of unity is a message of inclusion and wholeness, acceptance. I wonder how that applies to you today. Are you willing to wonder too? Are you willing to awake and be aware that God has an ongoing mystery that is disguised as your life? God comes to us disguised as our lives. Let's open up and awaken to this revelation that's here and now. It isn't somewhere out there. It's within you. It's waiting to be revealed. It's waiting to be pondered and explored. It's waiting to dwell in you. It already is. I'll ask you to claim, declare, and exclaim with me once more this powerful affirmation, this declaration of truth. Let's say this out loud together. I dwell in God. God dwells in me. So let's allow that dwelling to take place in the form of a breath. I'll ask that you breathe deeply and allow the body that has brought you to this here, now, holy instant to relax. As we allow this presence of God in our lives and no longer push it out, no longer edge God out, we open ourselves into embracing the revelation. We open ourselves to truly accepting the wonder and amazement that we get to live in today. May we see the beauty of a flower, but realize that there is something deeper than something simply temporary or transient. There is a resonance and a movement in you that far extends any experience you may be having in your life. Let's center in the divine idea of wonder and amazement, of purpose and truth. Let's open to that in joy and in celebration, right here and right now, in sacred and holy silence.